Oh, it was hot today. Mama, we were down at the beach. It was hot. Now I'll go to the beach today too. I'll go to the beach every single day. You got a bod like this, you take it to the beach, you show it off. I don't know who I'm talking to. I am alone in this basement. My name is Jay Onright. This is SportsCenter with Jay and Dan, brought to you by McDonald's. And the massive news from the hockey world on Monday, Bob McKenzie has been reporting it for the last few days. The NHL and the National Hockey League Players Association reaching a tentative memorandum of understanding that'll add 4 additional years to the term of the current collective bargaining agreement and a tentative agreement on the return to play phases 3 and 4. July 13th, start of training camps. July 26th, clubs travel to their hub cities. August the 1st, baby, the start of the qualifying round. Here's Rod Smith.
More on this now from our hockey insider, Bob McKenzie, on what this means. A tentative agreement, Bob, so it still needs to be made official. I would think that's pretty important here if they want to carry on their plan and go to phase 3 in just 1 week.
Well, you're right, Rod. The NHL and the NHLPA put out the release that the tentative agreement is in place, pending ratification on both sides. But they also put out that they expect to meet the targeted dates of camp opening a week today, Monday, July 13th. Teams reporting to the respective hubs, Edmonton for the Western Conference, Toronto for the Eastern Conference, on July 26th. And the meaningful games in the return to play for the 2019-20 season would start being played on August 1st, if all goes well. Now, we should talk about that ratification process. First off, NHL Board of Governors have to get it done. They will have a Board of Governors conference call before the end of the week. It's expected that they will endorse it because when Gary Bettman puts it to the board, it usually passes. There's currently on this evening a call going on for the executive board of the NHLPA, and they're in the process of recommending that this goes to the full membership for a vote. That could start as early as Wednesday. It often takes 24, 48, 72 hours for a full membership vote to happen. So the ratification for this deal on both sides may not occur until closer to the end of the week, but that won't affect the dates. That's kind of being built in here. So at this point, everything is still on course for the dates the NHL and the NHLPA have targeted, pending the ratification.
Well, it's interesting, the 4-year extension. I wouldn't have thought that would be critical just because we're all hoping that, COVID won't be a factor for that long. Why is labor peace for that long, plus the 2 years, so important here?
Well, we don't know how long COVID's going to be around, but even if COVID is gone in a year or two, the economic impact, the negative economic impact on $1 billion NHL hockey industry is going to be carried on for years to come. And this is so important for the NHL and the NHLPA to put together the 4-year extension on top of the existing 2 years of the CBA, because it gives them a 6-year runway to try and pay down the debt. And let's be honest, the players are taking a big hit here. The owners are also taking a hit here. And rather than absorb all of that economic pain that they would be taking on in the next 2 years of the final CBA and then maybe be looking at a lockout, boy, oh boy, it's so important that they were able to get this labor peace. And you know what? The NHL and the NHLPA, who oftentimes, and we've seen it, we lost a full year in 2004, 2005. We lost half a year in 2012-13. They really deserve to be congratulated here because this pandemic forced them to get together. And because of the economic negativity that's going to be around for a while, they were able to put together this deal that is really important to both sides being able to work their way through it.
A critical decision, a tentative agreement between the NHL and the PA still yet to be ratified, but looks like they're that much closer to getting the game back on the ice. Our hockey insider, Bob McKenzie.
And if you want to hear more from Bob, he's our guest this week on the Jay and Dan podcast. He talks way more about the CBA, the NHL's return to play. This is just a recap for you. Yeah, August 1st, that's when the games will begin, early October. 24-team tournament. You know what Bob says on the podcast, and it's true. Tentatively November the 1st for free agent frenzy. So you'll have a bag of candy for free agent frenzy. You know, I was talking to a Chiefs fan a little while ago. Yeah, they're coming out of the woodwork now. Who knew? And that Chiefs fan was saying, can you believe that Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP, League MVP, Super Bowl champion, can you believe he still has a couple years left on his rookie deal? No, that doesn't matter anymore because on Monday he signed the largest contract in pro sports history. Up to $503 million over 10 years. It's a 10-year extension. Mahomes now will be in Kansas City through the 2031 season. Patty Mahomes. By the way, this has a $140 million injury guarantee on this deal. So Patrick Mahomes is going to be okay. The MLS is back tournament is scheduled to begin on Wednesday. We have both games for you here on TSN, but FC Dallas, who got hit hard by COVID, will not be participating in the MLS's back tournament. That's the big news out of the MLS on Monday. Dallas had 3 players test positive before the team arrived in Orlando June the 27th, followed by 10 players and 1 coach testing positive for a total of 14 cases. The team has been under quarantine, unable to train in Florida. MLS Commissioner Don Garber spoke to ESPN about Dallas's withdrawal.
Don, what happened here with this club where it had just those 3 positive tests before heading to Orlando, and then you see that spike upon arrival?
Well, you know, it starts with the best way for us to ensure that we have our players in an environment that protects them is to put them into a centralized location. We have health and safety protocols, regular testing, and this actually proves that the protocol is working, that they were, in essence, stopped before they entered the bubble. And once we saw that the numbers of players that were coming in from Dallas were testing the way they were, it was a fairly easy decision. You know, I've said this many times, and I know this is similar to every other league, the health and safety of our players is paramount. And this tournament is something that's important to our league. But if any time we believe that anything is going to happen that's going to threaten their health and safety, then we're going to have to pivot and make decisions. You know, we're operating in this new COVID world, and we knew that there were going to be some risks, and that there were going to be some things that we would have to address on the fly as we were going through the protocols, and this is just an example.
I think it is an easy decision for Major League Soccer. When you look at the numbers, over 550 players have been tested in the MLS bubble. 13 have come back positive. 10 of those, FC Dallas. And so I don't think Major League Soccer really had any decision or choice here, and I think FC Dallas has to live with it. But the one thing is obvious here, Sage, while you and Kevin talk about the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL, and even the NFL, we are in a country that are now reaping the benefits of each individual state treating the COVID-19 pandemic in a completely different manner. And I think what the Major League Soccer bubble has shown me and some of the people within the NBA that I have spoken to is that the individual states and the clubs and the franchise, what they're doing in those states compared to how extensive the things are happening in the MLS bubble and that are going to happen in the NBA bubble, that's more of an apples to oranges conversation right now. Major League Soccer, ESPN, and the other television partners knew that there was going to be delays coming. First off, you're playing games in Orlando, Florida, so there were going to be weather delays. But when you have a World Cup-style tournament with 26 teams and one leaves, the competitive integrity doesn't really shift regarding scheduling games. But the most important thing for those of you at home is to remember this. Every team has to be in the bubble for 7 days. Now, some teams are arriving tonight. That means those teams playing less than 7 days from now, those games are going to be postponed. But Major League Soccer knew positives were coming. They knew delays were coming, as did ESPN. I just think, Sage, ultimately you're going to see a tournament that may have more games at 9 a.m. on ESPN than we originally thought.
LAFC's Carlos Vela has opted out of the MLS's back tournament. The reigning scoring champ and MVP has chosen to remain home with his pregnant wife and 3-year-old son. 4th best salary in the league. LA's captain is now the highest profile player to opt out of the tournament. And when we return on Jay and Dan at Home, brought to you by McDonald's, some issues with Major League Baseball COVID testing. Stay tuned. Talking over. You may have noticed that behind me, this wall is now blue. This is a waterproofing paste, waterproofing the basement here in my house in downtown Toronto. Then we're going to put some drywall over that. My understanding is that Mike Holmes now works for us here at the CTV Bell Media Empire. Curious as to why Bell Media hasn't sent Mike over to help me with this stuff, because I probably haven't done a very good job. We continue to baseball. The Blue Jays getting ready to start training camp in Toronto at Sky Dome, and one of their players, most of the players showed up on Sunday night, but one of their players was left back in Dunedin after he tested positive for COVID, and 11 other players were left back because they were in contact with that player. So testing's going on, but one big baseball slugger isn't happy with the lack of testing that he's experienced so far. It's Kris Bryant.
What we agreed to was testing, every other day. And we have had guys here that showed up on Sunday and hadn't gotten tested again, 7 days later, and then you don't get the results for 2 days either. So that's, 9 days without knowing. And I think if we really want this to succeed, we're going to have to figure that out, and I wanted to play this year because I felt that it would be safe and I would feel comfortable. But honestly, I don't really feel that way, which is why I'm trying to keep my distance from everybody and wear my mask and just so that we can get this thing going. And I think if we want it to happen, if we want it to go smoothly, because this is the easy part, really. I mean, when you get into the season and you're traveling and you're in an airplane, your hotel, you're getting room service, guys are, who knows what people are doing, especially on the other teams too. You got to rely on everybody in this whole thing. And I think if we can't really nail the easy part, which is right now, and just our players, we got a big hill to climb.
Well said by Kris Bryant. Braves outfielder Nick Markakis, he has opted out of the 2020 season altogether. He is 36 years old, and he's the 8th player to publicly opt out of the upcoming season. His decision comes after the Braves recently announced 4 cases of coronavirus, including all-star first baseman and dual citizen Freddie Freeman.
I talked to Freddie Freeman the other day, and just hearing the way he sounded on the phone kind of opened my eyes. And Freddie didn't sound good. I hope he's doing good. I hope he's healthy. I know these guys need him more than anybody. And, just to hear him, the way he sounded on the phone, it was tough. It was kind of eye-opening. And, with everything that's going on, not just in baseball, but in the world, it makes you open your eyes. I got 3 kids that I've missed for, 11 years now.
Well, the Washington Nationals, Houston Astros, and St. Louis Cardinals canceled their workouts Monday as they await results from Friday's round of COVID-19 tests. Per MLB's protocol, all players were tested July the 3rd, but several teams said the results have been delayed in getting back to them, and that's, of course, what Kris Bryant was just talking about. I should also mention that Major League Baseball officially announced its 60-game schedule, and the Blue Jays will begin their season in Tampa Bay on July the 24th. So it's coming up quick. 40 of Toronto's 60 games will be against AL East teams, Yankees, Red Sox, Orioles, and Rays. The remainder of their schedule will be made up with 20 interleague games against the National League East. And the incident involving Bubba Wallace and the noose that was left in his garage continues to make news, on Monday, and that's because President Trump decided to tweet about it. And this is what his tweet said. Hey, Bubba Wallace, apologize to all those great NASCAR drivers and officials who came to his aid, stood by his side, and were willing to sacrifice everything for him, only to find out that the whole thing was just another hoax. That and flag decision has caused lowest ratings ever. The flag decision he's talking about is the Confederate flag and the fact that NASCAR has banned it from all its events. Bubba Wallace replied with a statement on Twitter dedicating his words to the next generation and those following in his footsteps, saying, "Your words and actions will always be held to a higher standard than others. You have to be prepared for that. You don't learn these things in school. You learn from trials and tribulations, ups and downs this crazy world provides. You will also have people testing you. Last thing, always deal with hate being thrown at you with love. Love over hate every day. Love should come naturally as people are taught to hate, even when it's hate from the POTUS. Love wins. BW." NASCAR released the following statement. We are proud to have Bubba Wallace in the NASCAR family. We commend his courage and leadership. NASCAR continues to stand tall with Bubba, our competitors, and everyone who makes our sport welcoming and inclusive for all racing fans. And now we turn back to hockey and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, we're just getting to the Buds, who are taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets in the play-in round when the return to play all kicks off on August the 1st. With more on the Buds and the biggest issue facing them as they get set to return, here's Gino.
Given the length of the pause in play, even the most ardent of hockey fans might have a hard time handicapping a series between the Leafs and the Blue Jackets. So we're bringing in help to Calgary. Here's Craig Button. To Toronto, here's Mark Masters. Mark, when the Toronto Maple Leafs open up Phase 3 in their full training camp, what's the single biggest storyline that you're going to be following?
Well, Gino, all eyes on Sheldon Keefe as the rookie head coach gets set for his first NHL playoffs. He's had 4 long months to try and figure out why his highly skilled team played so inconsistently down the stretch. Now we're going to find out what sort of answers he's come up with. Keefe has to determine what sort of opportunity to give youngsters like Nick Robertson and Rasmus Sandin. He has to find a way to coax the most out of a defense core that was shaky for much of the season, and he has to ensure the special teams units, which cost the Leafs dearly in the last 2 playoffs, are locked in right from the get-go. And Craig, the pressure is high for this young Leafs core as for the first time they enter a series as the higher seed.
Yes, Mark, the Toronto Maple Leafs are highly skilled, but they're not more skilled than the Tampa Bay Lightning were last season, who were summarily dismissed by the Columbus Blue Jackets quickly and efficiently. And the playoffs are about details. And yes, the Toronto Maple Leafs have skill, but the Columbus Blue Jackets, they contest every puck. They contest every square inch of ice. They don't beat themselves. They're excellent defensively. So for the Toronto Maple Leafs, if they want to play to their strengths, it's going to come down to the details. Win those pucks. Don't lose those battles for space. Don't take needless penalties, because this is a very well-coached team. And if they can find that form that Sheldon Keefe had them playing under during his first 20 games, they'll have a chance. If they don't dial into the details, I don't like their chances at all.
Well, Craig, when the breakdowns do come, the Leafs are going to lean on Frederik Andersen. The only problem is he's been a slow starter during his Toronto tenure. 4 seasons with the Leafs and a .900 save percentage in the month of October over that stretch. Gino, he will not have the luxury of playing his way into form this summer.
And make no mistake, it's going to feel like we're coming back from a full off season. Last year, there were 111 days between the awarding of the Stanley Cup to the Blues and the start of this regular season. Even if things go perfectly right now, the pause is going to be at least 142 days.
The latest edition of the Jay and Dan podcast, brought to you by McDonald's, features 2 amazing guests. First of all, the legend himself, Bob McKenzie, our hockey insider, talks about the newly ratified collective bargaining agreement in the NHL. And from Good Morning Football on the NFL Network, Kyle Brandt. Hilarious guy. We talk a lot about Back to the Future. Who Delivered is brought to you by McDelivery on this date, July the 6th, 2002. Serena Williams, at the age of 20, beats her older sister Venus to win her first Wimbledon title. 7-6, 6-3. First time siblings faced each other in the Wimbledon singles final since 1884. We all remember Maude and Lillian Watson. I was a Maude guy myself. Time now for our very popular You Blew It segment, where we point out our many, many errors. And as far as the show is concerned, I did okay, but I'm being told that this blue wall behind me is not working, and we're going to change it for tomorrow's show. Thanks for watching.